Alright, team, so we're back, of course, to talk about some Final Fantasy 7/Remake, but also some 16 and a little bit of Final Fantasy 9, so kind of a loaded video. Let's hop right into it. So, clearly we didn't upload yesterday, and that's because we were kind of sitting around waiting for the Final Fantasy 9 animated series reveal at that licensing expo that was in Las Vegas, and for some goddamn reason it didn't happen, and I don't really know why. I did see some people talking about it, saying that maybe the rumor about it being revealed or whatever was untrue, but it wasn't a rumor. And why I say that is because this guy right here, Bruno Denzel Dumont, is maybe I say his last name. He's the Vice President of International Licensing and Marketing for Cyber Group Studios, the studio that's making the Final Fantasy IX animated series. He did an interview with Animation Magazine, and he specifically is the one that said it was going to be at this event. We didn't read this with the last video, but we'll read it here, and we're just going to skip to the important part. But they ask, what are some of the new shows you'll be bringing to the event? And he says, additionally, our most recently developed shows, Digital Girl, The McFire Family, Press Start, and Final Fantasy IX, will be presented for the first time. These 4 new series have a strong licensing appeal for different age targets. So again, this wasn't speculation, it wasn't the potential for Final Fantasy IX being at this event. This was a quote coming directly from the Vice President of International Marketing and Licensing, the guy that markets the shit that they are doing. So why it wasn't at the event, I have no idea. Maybe it was a behind closed door reveal for like specific people that were at the event. I don't entirely know, but it was super underwhelming that we didn't get to see anything. Either way, hopefully we get to see something at some point, and with the kind of hype that we're building for this, and the anticipation that's kind of happening now for this kids show, I hope it's at least good. Great would be better, but I just hope it's not terrible. Anyways, moving on to the good shit. We randomly had a State of Play announced today, just kind of out of nowhere, as they tend to do, I think, with the last couple of State of Plays, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe they've always done it, and I just never knew. Never paid attention. Either way, this will be happening on June 2nd, so not even a week away. It's like 6 days away, actually. It'll be happening at 3 p.m. Pacific time, so 6 p.m. Eastern time. For me here in the Central Time Zone, it'll be 4 p.m. Obviously, do the conversion time zone shit yourself, wherever you live. So they also dropped a brief article with this that says, it's been more than 2 months since our last State of Play. Who's ready for a new one? Tune in live next Thursday, June 2nd, for nearly 30 minutes of announcements and updates from the world of PlayStation. We'll have some exciting reveals from our third-party partners, plus a sneak peek at several games in development for PlayStation VR 2. Watch over at Twitch or on YouTube starting at 3 p.m. Pacific. See you next week. Now, before we even really continue with this, I've already seen speculation back and forth of what will or won't be at this event, what can and can't be at this event. People saying, like, God of War won't be here for whatever reason. I've also seen people saying, like, 16 can be this event because this is a State of Play, not like a PlayStation, like, showcase, and that's reserved for the bigger games or something like that. But also, because this State of Play is focusing on third-party titles, which is exactly what the Final Fantasy series is. Like, Sony/PlayStation doesn't own Square Enix. Those are third-party games. Regardless, it doesn't really matter what people think or believe because, at least according to this blog post, nothing should be off limits because they talk about new reveals, but also updates. Updates implies new information for things that have already been revealed. They also talk about updates from the world of PlayStation, which would also imply first-party titles. So again, it's weird. I don't know what people are doing. Anyways, putting that bullshit aside, this is pretty exciting, man, because we've been looking forward to a lot of Final Fantasy-related reveals coming up in the next couple weeks. We know that Remake Part 2 should be talked about sometime within this year. We know that they're going to make some announcements for the 25th anniversary for Final Fantasy VII sometime within June. And then we know that we're supposed to be getting a Final Fantasy 16 trailer at some point relatively soon. And we're kind of focusing all that towards Summer Game Fest, right, in the next couple weeks. But it turns out that there's another gaming event now. Now, as for what can be shown where, for starters, when it comes to Remake has a history at State of Play. For the first time in almost 4 years back in 2019, they gave us a teaser trailer and then told us that they're going to show more of the game at E3 of that year. So we already have a history of the Final Fantasy games being shown at State of Play, so in that regard, both games could absolutely be at the State of Play, presumably. But also kind of in reference to what that blog post says, they talk about new games being at the event, but also updates, and of course Remake and 16 qualify in different ways for that, because Remake Part 2 would be a new game reveal, and also, if they showed some more for 16, that would be an update for a game that we've already seen. Now, it's kind of hard to speculate on what game could be shown where. Let's just presume, for the sake of conversation, that Remake Part 2 will be shown sometime within the next few weeks. They could have one game at State of Play and one game at Summer Game Fest. They could do both games at both events, both games at one event, and neither game at one event. They could also do, like, a teaser trailer for, like, say, 16 at State of Play, kind of like they did with Remake back in 2019, but also tease more information coming at, like, Summer Game Fest, potentially. Which I feel like that's a decent guess. I'm not saying that's exactly what's going to happen, but they couldn't do a full-blown like showcase for 16 at State of Play because it's only a 30-minute thing, and they're just kind of rapid fire, just going game after game after game, right? So they couldn't do like some huge crazy reveal for 16, but they could show a little teaser, and then maybe do like a bigger showcase at like Summer Game Fest or something. But I don't really know what Summer Game Fest is. Is it like an all-digital thing? Is there going to be crowds with it? Could they set aside like a good 20-30 minutes or some shit to specifically talk about one game? I don't entirely know. Because you're going to have to do some sort of big reveal like that for 16 at some point, because we still don't know how the game itself works. We know kind of the basics, right? But we don't know exactly the ins and outs of combat or equipment or like character progression and shit like that, right? Like, there's so much we don't know. So they're going to have to set aside like some sort of like 15, 20, 30-minute showcase somewhere at some gaming event at some point. Could be like a Square Enix Presents type thing. They could kind of reserve it and save it for their own thing. I don't entirely know, but that's something they're going to have to do eventually. And when they talk about, 7 Remake Part 2, they don't necessarily have to do that, because combat's probably going to be relatively the same, right? There's going to be maybe some changes, some additional things that we can do in the combat for Part 2 we couldn't do in Part 1, but we don't really need to break down how the game works, because we're probably going to have still like the weapon cores, the materia system, all that shit's probably going to be relatively the same. Now, in regards to the 25th anniversary stuff for Final Fantasy VII, the main thing we're thinking with that, at least as of right now, is Ever Crisis, of course. And Ever Crisis being a mobile-only game, that would not be its state of play, right? It's not a PlayStation thing, so they wouldn't show that there. That doesn't mean that there couldn't be other stuff in regards to the 25th anniversary at state of play. I just don't know what that'd be outside of Remake Part 2. But Nomura did tease multiple announcements in regards to the 25th anniversary, and something I actually kind of forgot about that we haven't discussed in a while is earlier this year on the actual 25th anniversary for the Japanese release of the game, we got, messages from Kitase and Nomura teased multiple Final Fantasy VII projects. Specifically, it's that bottom portion that says, and there will be even more new Final Fantasy VII projects to start up after the remake coming in future too. The team see this 25th anniversary as a waypoint on our journey with Final Fantasy VII, and will continue pressing ahead to even greater things, so please keep supporting us going forward. And again, I think it's kind of important to look back at this quote now, because I kind of forgot about it for one, but also when we recently discussed the potential for what these 25th anniversary June announcements could be, we kind of speculated on whether or not it could be, new projects that we just don't know anything about, and I kind of forgot about this Nomura quote. So I think it's kind of confirmation now, because he was talking about new FF7 projects that get started up after Remake in celebration of the 25th anniversary, and then he says, recently, we're going to have 25th anniversary announcements. So we're going to know what these new projects are. I'm kind of curious what they could be. In regards to state of play, like, if there's going to be something at state of play in regards to the 25th anniversary, that means it's going to be a PlayStation thing, a PlayStation game, and I have no fucking idea what that could be. What would another FF7 PlayStation, like, console game be? That's hard to speculate on, because I have no fucking idea. So, more than likely, if it's not going to be a console thing, a console game, whatever, more than likely a lot of the 25th anniversary stuff would probably be at Summer Game Fest or elsewhere within June. We do know, based on some trademarks we looked at recently, that there's probably going to be a Final Fantasy rhythm game, which is not exciting in the slightest. But besides that, I really don't know, man, because, I completely forgot that there was other FF7-related projects in the works that were going to be revealed throughout this year at some point. And we already have a Battle Royale. We already have this Ever Crisis coming out at some point with this, retelling of the FF7 compilation. And now we have a potential rhythm game coming out. So what would other FF7 projects be? Like, I don't really know, because we've kind of got a lot of bases covered, man. I mean, clearly there are a plethora of untapped genres that they haven't done with the FF7 compilation yet, but I just, again, don't know what to speculate on with that. Now, I'm back to that quote from Nomura again, really quickly, and I don't want to build up any unnecessary hype here, but hear me out as I go on this tangent. And I probably didn't talk about this with my initial video I would have done back in January when I would have covered these quotes from Kitase and Nomura, but specifically Nomura says, new Final Fantasy VII projects that started up after the remake. Now, there are several time frames and windows in which he could be referencing. For one, he could be talking about projects that were started after Remake was finished. So after they kind of finished fully making the game back in like 2020, they started up some new projects. He could be talking about like the 2019 State of Play reveal, so projects that have been in the works for like 2 to 3 years now. It could be going back to like 2017 when they got rid of CyberConnect 2 and brought development in-house, and they're the ones who started making Remake. Or it could be talking about as far back as like the 2015 reveal or before then. Projects that have been in the works for 6, 7 years now. It really comes down to what he means by after the remake, as in were they projects that were started after Remake started development, or are they projects that were started after the remake was completely finished? I'm not entirely sure what he means, but there's potential that these are projects that have been in the works for a couple of years, maybe several years. Maybe we're finally going to get another console spin-off game. We haven't had those since like Dirge of Cerberus and Crisis Core, right? And Crisis Core was a handheld. It was a fantastic game, but it's a handheld console game. So if we're talking about just console-specific games, we haven't had one since Dirge of Cerberus, man. It's been quite some time. And let me be perfectly clear here, there's nothing I fucking want more than more FF7 console games. Like, I don't mind the spin-off stuff, like First Soldier or whatever, it's not my bag, but some people like it, and there's fun to be had with that for those people. But if we're talking about like another console spin-off game that focuses on maybe one or a couple of characters, or people have been asking for a Tifa solo game, I'm just saying, that'd be pretty fucking cool. I don't know what it'd be, I don't know how you do it, I don't know what genre it'd be, I don't know where it'd take place in the timeline of shit, I just don't know. Don't get me wrong, my dudes, I am absolutely keeping the hype in check, but there's a small caveman part of my brain right now that is letting the speculation run wild. And again, keeping the hype in check here, what better time, though, to announce or reveal, or maybe even release, a spin-off FF7 game than the 25th anniversary? They've definitely done that in the past, you know, before Crisis and Dirge of Cerberus were released on kind of random years, but Crisis Core came out in 2007, specifically a decade after the original FF7. Regardless of the crazy speculation and things that we could discuss and theorize within this video, the main thing is that we know that there are multiple Final Fantasy VII projects in the works, and they should be revealed within the next week or two, potentially. And hopefully, whatever they are, they're great. They're good to great. Hopefully, they're not shit. Hopefully, they're not they're not a fucking rhythm game, but that's probably going to happen. I hear towards the end of the video where we're usually wind things down, we're going to keep the hype and speculation going, because, just sort of out of nowhere today, Nojima started tweeting out that he was playing through Remake. You know, the same day that a state of play is revealed, randomly Nojima's playing Remake. And I say randomly because I've been following the guy for like at least half a year now or so. And he's actually pretty active on Twitter, but he usually tweet out like random shit, and I don't even always translate what he says. I usually just like his tweets and move about my day, but sometimes he'll tweet out pictures like his guinea pigs, or maybe a TV show that he's watching, or talk about something that he's watching, or whatever the case. But I can't recall having ever seen him tweet out necessarily about video games, or like a video game that he's playing, or pictures of his TV of a video game that he's playing. Like, I can't recall it ever happening. And then randomly today, again, a state of play is announced, all of a sudden Nojima's playing Remake. It's interesting, and then we're on the eve of some FF7 related news. I just thought it stood out a lot. This wasn't like a small amount either. It wasn't just like a picture or two. Like, my guy was super active for like a brief period, like an hour or two or something like that. He was just periodically, every few minutes, would tweet out a picture. He played through the beginning part of the game up to maybe like chapter 3, and then eventually chapter selected to chapter 8 with Aerith and Sector 5 and shit like that. But he was just going on a tangent, and to me it seemed like he's, you know, kind of alluding to something, maybe teasing something, but I just don't exactly know what. But my dudes, I think that's where we're going to pretty much wrap up the video. I'm starting to get a little raspy with the voice, man. It's a long video. I've been recording for quite some time. There's so much to talk about within this video. Pass off to you guys. Just what are your thoughts on anything and everything, but specifically in regards to these projects that Nomura was teasing earlier this year, and then more recently says we're going to get 25th anniversary announcements in June. What do you think these projects are, man? And specifically, the projects that were started after Remake, what do you think he means by that? Are we talking something that's been in the development for a few years or several years at this point? Also, fuck it, I'm going to throw this in towards the end of the video as well. I said in the past I don't really collect like video game memorabilia stuff, and that for the most part remains true, but I did buy the Uniqlo 35th Anniversary Final Fantasy VII shirt that came in the mail today. I also bought the Kids Are Alright Turk's Side Story book that also came in the mail today, and I also have On the Way to a Smile coming in the mail at some point. So I do think going forward I'm going to start collecting some more FF7 related stuff, but nothing like a Play Arts figures or anything like that, because I don't want to spend that kind of money. I don't really have that kind of space. But stuff like books and Ultimanias and shit I'll probably start grabbing. I'll probably grab Chase 2 Pass sometime soon, the Material Ultimania Plus, and maybe the regular Material Ultimania. It's a question for you guys that have bought that shit really quick, Billy, before we end this video finally, goddammit. The Material Ultimania and the Material Ultimania Plus, are there differences between them? Do they have unique stuff to them, or is the Material Ultimania Plus just the Material Ultimania with some additional shit? Let me know in the comments. My dudes, that is going to be the video. There's so much to talk about, goddamn. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you guys aren't interested in more Final Fantasy 9 animated series, Final Fantasy 7 25th anniversary shit, Final Fantasy 7 Remake Part 2 stuff, or Final Fantasy 16 related shit, or my goddamn FF7 collection. Turn on notifications. Follow me on Twitter, @YT. I'm a Discord. Links to the networks are in the description and in the outro. Later, guys.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Rogaine, or leave it like Cobain.